The summer sun was beating down on the fairgrounds that Saturday afternoon. I'd been volunteering at the Renaissance Fair for 3 years now, and honestly, I thought I'd seen everything. Knights jousting, ladies in fancy dresses, kids running around with wooden swords. It was the same beautiful chaos every weekend, but that day something different caught my eye. She was standing near the armorer's tent, completely frustrated. I could see it from across the path. Her face was scrunched up in concentration, and she was tugging at the leather straps on her shoulder armor like they'd personally offended her. The pauldron, that's what we call the shoulder piece, was twisted sideways and clearly not cooperating. I hesitated for a second. You know how it is when you want to help someone but don't want to seem pushy? But she looked genuinely stuck, so I walked over. "Need some help with that?" I asked, trying to sound casual and not like some random guy bothering her. She looked up, and I noticed her eyes were this striking shade of green. She let out a breath that was half laugh, half sigh of relief. "Please," she said. "I've been fighting with this thing for 10 minutes. I swear it hates me," I smiled. "Armor can be tricky if you don't know the right way to handle it. Mind if I take a look?" She nodded and turned slightly to give me better access to her shoulder. That's when I really noticed her costume. She was dressed as a female knight, which you didn't see too often at these fairs. The breastplate was fitted perfectly, and she had this chainmail skirt that actually looked authentic. Someone had put real thought into this outfit. I stepped closer and reached for the leather strap. "The trick is to loosen this part first," I explained, my fingers working on the buckle. "Then you can adjust the angle before you tighten it back up." As I worked, I became very aware of how close we were standing. She smelled like sunscreen and something floral, maybe lavender. My hands were steady as I adjusted the armor, but I could feel this weird energy between us. You know that feeling when you meet someone and there's just something there, like the air around you gets thicker somehow? "You really know what you're doing," she said quietly. "I've been working with the armorer here for a while," I replied, keeping my focus on the straps. "You learn a thing or two about medieval equipment when you spend every weekend surrounded by it." I had to lean in a bit to reach the back strap, and that's when it happened. My fingertips brushed against the bare skin of her neck just for a second. It was completely accidental, but she shivered. Actually shivered, despite the fact that it had to be 80 degrees out there. "Sorry," I said quickly, pulling back a little. "Cold hands." "No, you're fine," she said, but her voice sounded different. A bit breathless, maybe. I finished adjusting the pauldron and stepped back to check my work. "There you go. That should stay put now. Just make sure you don't pull on this strap here or it'll twist again." She rotated her shoulder, testing it out. "Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm supposed to be in the jousting demonstration in 20 minutes, and I was starting to panic." "You're performing in the joust?" I asked, impressed. "That's pretty intense for your first fair," she laughed. "How did you know this was my first year?" I shrugged. "Lucky guess. Also, the armor struggle was a bit of a giveaway." "No offense. None taken," she said, still smiling. "Yeah, I'm new to the fair circuit, but I've been doing stunt riding for years. When they said they needed someone for the female knight role, I figured why not. Seemed like fun." We stood there for a moment, neither of us quite ready to end the conversation. Around us the fair bustled with activity. A group of musicians walked by playing recorders. Someone dressed as a jester juggled nearby, but somehow it all felt like background noise. "I should probably get going," she said finally, glancing toward the jousting arena. "But seriously, thank you. You saved me from completely embarrassing myself out there." "Any time," I said. "I'll probably be around if you need any more adjustments. Armor's always giving people trouble." She smiled at me one more time, and then she was gone, disappearing into the crowd of fairgoers. I stood there for a minute longer than I probably should have, watching her walk away. The way she moved in that armor, confident despite her earlier struggle, told me she knew exactly what she was doing. I tried to shake off the feeling and get back to work. There were other people who needed help, other armor that needed adjusting. But I couldn't stop thinking about that moment. The accidental brush of my fingers against her neck. The way she'd shivered. The way we'd both pretended it was nothing. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur. I helped a kid fix his toy sword, showed a couple where to find the best turkey legs, and assisted the actual armorer with a broken chainmail link. Normal fair stuff. But my mind kept wandering back to the woman in the knight's armor. When the jousting demonstration started, I found myself walking toward the arena. I told myself it was just because I had some free time and the joust was always entertaining. But really, I wanted to see her perform. The stands were packed with families and couples, everyone eager to see the knights battle it out. I squeezed into a spot near the back just as the announcer's voice boomed across the arena. "Lords and ladies, boys and girls, welcome to the grand tournament." The crowd cheered as riders on horseback entered from both sides of the arena, and there she was, sitting tall on a massive gray horse, that same armor I'd helped adjust gleaming in the sunlight. She looked completely different now. Not frustrated or uncertain, but powerful and in control. The demonstration was incredible. She rode like she'd been born on horseback, guiding her horse with subtle movements while holding a lance steady. When she battled the other night, the choreography was so smooth it looked almost real. The crowd was on their feet, and I found myself cheering along with them. After the performance, the riders did a final lap around the arena, waving to the audience. As she passed near where I was standing, our eyes met for just a second. She smiled, this quick flash of recognition before riding on. That was it. Just a smile. But it was enough to tell me that whatever I'd felt earlier, that strange connection, wasn't just in my imagination. She'd felt it too. When my shift ended that evening and I was walking to my car, I couldn't stop replaying the day in my mind. The way she'd struggled with her armor. How natural it had felt to help her. That shiver. Her smile in the arena, I didn't even know her name. The drive home was quiet, just me and my thoughts. I worked as a metal sculptor during the week, spending my days in a studio creating art from steel and iron. The fair had started as a hobby, a way to connect with other people who loved working with their hands and bringing history to life. But it had become more than that. It was my escape, my creative outlet, my community. And now maybe it was something else too. As I pulled into my driveway, I made a decision. Next weekend, when the fair opened again, I'd keep an eye out for her. Maybe her armor would need another adjustment. Maybe we'd just run into each other. Maybe nothing would happen at all. But I had to know. Had to see if that moment, that connection was real or just a product of the fair's magical atmosphere, where everyone played pretend and anything seemed possible. I went to bed that night thinking about green eyes and the sound of a shiver, and wondering if she was thinking about me too. The next Saturday couldn't come fast enough. I spent the whole week distracted, messing up details on a commission I was working on because my mind was elsewhere. My workshop partner kept asking if I was feeling okay. I told him I was fine, just tired. But really, I was counting down the days until I could go back to the fair. When Saturday finally arrived, I got there early. Too early, actually. The fair didn't open to the public for another hour, but volunteers could arrive early to set up. I busied myself at the armorer's tent, organizing tools and pretending I wasn't scanning every person who walked by. Maybe she wouldn't come back. Maybe she'd decided one weekend was enough. Maybe I'd built this up in my head for nothing, but then around mid-morning I saw her. She was walking down the main path, that same armor on, though this time she'd added a red cape that flowed behind her. She was talking to another performer, laughing at something they'd said. I tried to look casual, like I just happened to be standing there, but when she glanced my way and her face lit up with recognition, I knew I'd been caught. "Hey," she called out, excusing herself from her conversation and walking over. "Armor expert. I was hoping I'd run into you." "Yeah?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Everything still fitting okay?" She made a show of rotating her shoulder. "Actually, I think this backstrap might be a little loose. Do you have a minute to check it?" I knew the backstrap was probably fine. I'd adjusted that armor perfectly the week before, but I wasn't about to say that. "Sure, let me take a look." She turned around and I stepped closer, reaching for the leather straps. My fingers found the buckle and, yeah, it was exactly as tight as it should be, but I pretended to examine it anyway, taking my time. "So, you came back for week 2, I said, making conversation. "Of course. I'm here all summer. What about you? Is this just a weekend thing, or do you actually work here?" "Volunteer," I explained. "I have a real job during the week, but I've been coming here every summer for years. It's kind of become my second home." "What do you do?" "Like your real job?" "I'm a sculptor. I work with metal mostly. Steel, iron, bronze, that kind of thing." She turned her head slightly to look at me over her shoulder. "Really? That's amazing. So you actually know how to forge stuff? Like real medieval-style smithing?" "Some of it, yeah. I mean, I use modern tools too, but the principles are the same. Metal is metal, whether you're making art or armor." "That's so cool," she said, and she sounded genuinely interested. "I'd love to see your work sometime." My heart did this weird skip thing. Yeah, maybe. I have a studio not too far from here. I finished pretending to adjust her strap and stepped back. All set. Should hold up fine now. Thanks, she said, turning to face me again. We stood there for a moment just looking at each other. The fair was coming alive around us. Merchants opening their booths, performers warming up. Early visitors starting to trickle in. I should probably go, she said. But she didn't move. Yeah, me too, I said. Not moving either. Finally, she laughed. Okay, this is weird, right? We're just standing here. Little bit, I admitted, laughing too. Same time next week? She asked. In case my armor needs more adjusting. I'll be here, I said, and I was. The next weekend and the one after that and every Saturday for the rest of that month. Each time she'd find some reason why her armor needed attention. A loose strap, a twisted buckle, a piece that didn't sit quite right. And each time I'd help her, taking longer than necessary, our conversations growing deeper. I learned her name was Elena, though she asked me to keep calling her by her character name, Lady Catherine, during fair hours. She told me about her life, how she'd moved to town 6 months ago after a bad breakup, how she'd been looking for a fresh start and something fun to do with her weekends. The fair had been perfect timing. She learned about my art, my obsession with creating beauty from raw metal, my tendency to lose myself in my work for days at a time. She didn't judge me for it. In fact, she seemed to understand it in a way most people didn't. The fourth weekend, it rained. Not just a light sprinkle, but a sudden summer storm that sent everyone scrambling for cover. Elena and I were in the middle of one of our adjustment sessions when the sky opened up. Within seconds, we were both soaked. Quick! I shouted over the sound of the rain, grabbing her hand and pulling her toward the armorer's tent. We ducked inside just as the rain got even heavier. The tent was small, cluttered with tools and pieces of armor. It smelled like leather and oil. We stood there, dripping wet and breathing hard. And then we both started laughing. So much for staying dry, she said, pushing wet hair out of her face. At least your armor's waterproof, I joked. The storm showed no signs of letting up. Outside, the fair had essentially shut down. Everyone was huddled under tents or had run for their cars. It was just us in our little shelter, the sound of rain drumming on canvas above our heads. You know, Elena said after a moment, I should probably confess something. What's that? My armor doesn't really need adjusting every week. It's been fine since that first day. I smiled. I know, her eyes widened. You know? And you still... Yeah, I said. I still helped you every time. Because I like talking to you. I like being around you. Even if it means pretending a perfectly good buckle needs fixing. She bit her lip, looking at me with this expression I couldn't quite read. I wasn't sure if you felt it too. That first day, I mean. When you touched my neck and I shivered, I finished. Yeah, I noticed that. It wasn't because I was cold. I know. The air between us felt charged, like the storm outside had somehow gotten inside the tent. We were standing closer than we needed to be, and neither of us was backing away. This is probably a terrible idea, Elena whispered. What is? But before she could answer, someone called out from outside the tent. Hey, anyone in there? We're closing up early because of the storm. The moment broke. Elena stepped back and I turned toward the voice. Yeah, we're here. Just waiting out the rain. When I looked back at Elena, she was already moving toward the tent opening. The storm was still going strong, but she seemed ready to brave it. Wait, I said. Let me at least walk you to your car. She smiled, but it was different from before. A little sad, maybe, or uncertain. Okay, she said. We made a run for it, splashing through puddles and dodging rivers of water. Her car was parked near the back of the lot, and by the time we got there, we were both completely drenched again. She opened her door, but didn't get in right away. Thanks for walking me, she said. Anytime. She hesitated, like she wanted to say something else, but instead, she just gave me a small wave and climbed into her car. I watched her drive away, rain streaming down my face, and wondered what she'd been about to say in that tent. What would have happened if we hadn't been interrupted, and whether I'd get another chance to find out. The fair season was coming to an end. Just 2 more weekends left, and then everything would shut down for the fall and winter. The thought made my chest feel tight. What would happen after the fair closed? Would I just not see Elena anymore? Would this whole thing fade away like it had never happened? That weekend, I decided I needed to do something. Say something. Anything to make sure this didn't just end. I found her before her joust performance, helping her check her horse's saddle like I'd started doing every week. It had become our routine. She'd arrive, we'd talk while getting her ready, and then I'd watch her perform before we'd meet up again for more armor adjustments. "Elena," I said, using her real name even though we were in the middle of the fair. "I've been thinking." "Dangerous activity," she teased, tightening a strap on her saddle. "I'm serious. The fair's almost over for the season." Her hands stilled. "I know, and I don't want this to end." "Us talking, I mean." "Hanging out," she turned to look at me. "It doesn't have to end. We both live here. We can see each other when there's no fair." "That's what I was hoping you'd say," I admitted. "But also I think we should actually go on a real date. Not just me pretending to fix your armor while we talk." She smiled, but there was something nervous in her eyes. "A date like outside of all this? Without the costumes and the fantasy?" "Yeah, just us. Regular clothes, regular world." She was quiet for a moment, and my heart started sinking. Maybe I'd misread everything. Maybe the connection only worked here, in this pretend medieval world where we could be different versions of ourselves. "Okay," she said finally. "Let's do it. Really. But can we wait until after the fair closes? I want to finish the season strong without getting distracted." 2 weeks. I could wait 2 weeks, except those 2 weeks felt like an eternity. We still met up every weekend, still had our adjustment sessions and long conversations, but now there was this awareness hanging between us, this knowledge that something was coming, something real. The last day of the fair was bittersweet. Everyone was hugging and promising to keep in touch until next year. The vendors were packing up their wares, performers were taking final bows. There was magic in the air, but also sadness. Elena found me near the closing ceremony. The sun was setting, casting everything in golden light. She'd taken off most of her armor and was just wearing the simple tunic and pants underneath. "So," she said, "next Saturday? For that date?" "Actually," I said, "I was thinking maybe I could help you store your armor. I've got space in my workshop, and it's better than leaving it in a garage where it might get damaged." "Are you using armor storage as an excuse to see me sooner?" "Absolutely," she laughed. "Okay, where's your workshop?" I gave her the address, and we made plans for the following Saturday afternoon. When we said goodbye that night, she hugged me. It was the first time we'd really hugged, and it felt both natural and overwhelming at the same time. Saturday arrived, and I spent the morning cleaning my workshop, moving tools around, trying to make it look presentable. It was a mess, honestly. Sculptures in various states of completion, metal scraps everywhere, tools I should have put away weeks ago. But this was my space, my world, and I wanted her to see it. When she arrived, she was carrying a large bag with her armor and wearing jeans and a simple blue t-shirt. I'd only ever seen her in costume before. She looked different, more real somehow, but just as beautiful. "Welcome to the chaos," I said, opening the door wider. She stepped inside and her eyes went wide. "Wow, this is incredible." The workshop was filled with my work. Abstract sculptures made from twisted metal. Figures of people and animals, geometric designs that played with light and shadow. Years of creation surrounded us. "You made all of this?" she asked, walking slowly through the space. "Yeah. It's kind of my whole life, honestly." She stopped in front of a sculpture I'd been working on recently. It was 2 hands, not quite touching, reaching for each other. The metal was still rough, unfinished. "What's this one?" "Not sure yet," I said, coming to stand beside her. "I started it a few weeks ago, but I haven't figured out how to finish it." She reached out but didn't touch it. "It's beautiful, and sad somehow, like they want to connect but something's stopping them." I looked at her instead of the sculpture. "Yeah, something like that." We spent the next hour sorting through her armor, cleaning each piece and finding places to store it safely. We talked easily like we always did, but there was this underlying tension. Both of us aware that we were alone away from the fair, without the excuse of armor adjustments. "Can I ask you something?" Helena said as we were finishing up. "Sure." "Why do you think we connected?" "At the fair, I mean. What was it about that first day?" I thought about it. Honestly, I don't know. Sometimes things just click with people. You felt it too, right? That first moment? "Yeah," she said quietly. "When you touched my neck and I shivered. I was so embarrassed. I thought you'd think I was weird. I thought I'd made you uncomfortable. No, it was the opposite. You made me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time, and it scared me." We were standing close now, her armor bag forgotten on the floor beside us. The afternoon light was streaming through the workshop windows, making dust particles dance in the air. "I should go," Elena said, but she didn't move. "You don't have to. I know, but I'm scared. And I don't trust myself to make good decisions when I'm scared." "Scared of what?" She looked up at me and her eyes were honest and vulnerable. "Scared of getting hurt again. My last relationship ended badly, really badly, and I moved here to start over, to be on my own for a while. Then I met you and everything I planned went out the window." "We can take it slow," I said. "As slow as you need, and that's the problem." "I don't want slow. I want to know you. I want to spend time with you. But I also don't want to rush into something and ruin it." I understood that, more than she probably knew. "So what do we do?" "How about that date?" she said. "A real one. Dinner maybe? Somewhere we can just talk and figure this out together? Tomorrow night?" She smiled. "I'm going to need a day to mentally prepare for this." "Fair enough. Thursday?" "Thursday works." When she left, she hugged me again at the door. This time it lasted a little longer. When she pulled back, she looked like she wanted to say something else, but instead she just squeezed my hand and walked to her car. I watched her drive away, then turned back to look at my workshop. The unfinished sculpture of reaching hands caught my eye again. Maybe I was starting to understand how to complete it after all. Thursday came and I was more nervous than I'd been in years. I picked Elena up at 7, and we drove to a small Italian restaurant across town. Nothing too fancy, but nice enough that it felt special. She was wearing a green dress that matched her eyes, and I'd actually ironed my shirt for the occasion. Dinner was easy. We talked about everything. Her childhood, growing up on a farm, learning to ride horses before she could ride a bike. My family. How my dad thought I was crazy for choosing art over a stable career. We laughed a lot. The nervousness faded somewhere between appetizers and the main course. "Can I tell you something embarrassing?" Elena asked over dessert. "Please do. I looked you up online. Your art stuff. You've won awards. You had a gallery show in the city last year. Why didn't you tell me any of that?" I shrugged. It didn't seem important. That's work stuff. I like keeping it separate from my life. "But your art is your life. You said so yourself." "Was my life," I corrected. Past tense. "It's been feeling different lately." "How so?" "It's not enough anymore. Just work, just creating things. I've spent the last 5 years focused only on my art, building my career, and it's been good. But it's also been lonely. I didn't really notice until I met you." She reached across the table and took my hand. "I know what you mean. I threw myself into writing after my breakup. Took every gig I could find, worked constantly. It helped me not think about how much it hurt. But now I want to think about other things. Better things." After dinner, we walked through a nearby park. It was a warm evening and other couples were out doing the same thing. We talked about the fair, about whether we'd both come back next season. Of course we would. It's where we'd met. It would always be special because of that. "Come to my stable tomorrow," Elena said suddenly. "I want to show you where I work. If you're not busy." "I'm not busy." The next day I drove out to the riding stable where she trained. It was beautiful out there, all rolling hills and white fences. Elena was already riding when I arrived, practicing stunts in a large arena. I watched from the fence as she galloped across the space, stood up in the stirrups, leaned far to one side while maintaining perfect balance. When she finished, she rode over to where I was standing, slightly out of breath but grinning. "What did you think?" "I think you're incredible." "How long have you been doing this?" "Since I was 6. It's all I've ever wanted to do." She dismounted and led her horse toward the barn. "Come on, I'll introduce you to everyone." Everyone turned out to be 7 horses, 2 barn cats, and an old dog named Chester, who followed Elena everywhere. She showed me around, explained how the training worked, told me stories about different performances she'd done over the years. "This is my world," she said as we stood in the barn, afternoon light filtering through the wooden slats. "Just like your workshop is yours. I wanted you to see it." "I'm glad you showed me." Over the next few weeks we fell into a pattern. Some days I'd visit the stable and watch her work. Other days she'd come to my workshop and sit nearby while I created, asking questions about techniques and tools. We went on more dates. We talked for hours on the phone when we couldn't see each other. It was good. Really good. But there was still this wall between us, something Elena couldn't quite let go of. We'd get close and then she'd pull back. Not dramatically, just a subtle withdrawal. I could feel it every time. One evening, about 2 months after our first real date, we were at my place watching a movie. She'd been quiet all day, distracted. Finally, I paused the movie. "What's going on? You've been somewhere else all night." She was quiet for a long moment. "My ex called yesterday, my stomach dropped." "Oh, he wants to meet up. Says he wants to apologize for how things ended." I told him no, but it brought everything back. All the bad memories. "Do you want to talk about it?" "Not really, but I probably should." She turned to face me on the couch.
"He cheated on me."
"Multiple times, and I kept taking him back because I thought I could fix it, fix us. Eventually I realized I couldn't fix someone who didn't want to change. So I left, moved here. Started over, I'm sorry. That's awful. The thing is, it made me really good at protecting myself. Maybe too good. I don't let people get close anymore because I'm terrified of being hurt like that again." "Elena, let me finish," she said gently. "You've been so patient with me, so understanding of my pace and my boundaries, but I'm scared that I'm hurting you by keeping you at a distance. And I'm scared that I'm missing out on something amazing because I'm too afraid to fully let you in." I took her hand. "You're not hurting me, and there's no timeline here. We move at whatever pace feels right for you. But that's not fair to you. Let me decide what's fair to me," I said. "I like you, a lot, and yeah, sometimes it's hard when I feel you pulling away, but I also understand why. Trust takes time, especially when it's been broken before." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "How are you so patient?" "Because you're worth waiting for." We sat like that for a while, the movie forgotten. Finally, Elena spoke again. "I don't want to pull away anymore. I'm tired of being scared. You don't have to decide that right now, but I want to. I want to be brave enough to let you in. All the way in." I kissed the top of her head. "Then we'll work on it together. No pressure, no rush." She looked up at me then, and there were tears in her eyes. "Thank you for being you." After that night, things started to shift. Elena didn't pull away as much. She let me get closer, both physically and emotionally. We started talking about the future, making plans beyond just next week or next month. One day in the workshop, she noticed I'd been working on that sculpture again. "The reaching hands, you're finishing it," she observed. "Yeah, I think I finally figured out how it's supposed to end." "How?" "The hands," I said, stepping back to look at my work. "They're not going to touch. They're going to intertwine, support each other. It's about connection, not just contact." Elena looked at the sculpture for a long time. "That's beautiful, and kind of perfect." "It's us," I admitted. "I started it after I met you, and I couldn't finish it until I understood what we were building together." She turned to me with this look of wonder on her face. "You made art about us?" "All my recent work has been influenced by you. You inspire me in ways I didn't expect. Can I see more of it?" I showed her the other pieces I'd been working on. A series of sculptures exploring themes of vulnerability and strength, protection and openness. She walked through them slowly, taking in each piece. "These are going to make you famous," she said. "I don't care about famous. I care about making things that matter." Well, these matter. They're special. When she left that evening, she stopped at the door like always. But this time, instead of just hugging me goodbye, she kissed me. Really kissed me, not the quick pecks we'd exchanged before. When she pulled back, she was smiling. "I'm done being scared," she said. "I'm all in, if you'll have me." "Always," I said, pulling her close again. And this time, when I closed the door after she left, I knew everything had changed. The wall was finally down. We were really doing this. The reaching hands in my sculpture were almost complete. Just like us, they'd found a way to connect. Winter passed, and suddenly it was spring again. The Renaissance Fair was getting ready to open for a new season, and everything felt different this time around. Elena and I had spent the cold months growing closer, becoming a real couple. The kind that had inside jokes and favorite restaurants and plans for the future. We'd decided together that we'd both return to the fair. It was where we'd met, after all. It would always hold special meaning for us. The morning of opening day, I arrived at the fairgrounds earlier than usual. There was something I needed to do before the crowds arrived. I'd been working on a special piece for weeks, finishing it just the night before. I found the fair director near the main entrance, and she smiled when she saw me carrying the wrapped sculpture. "Is that what I think it is?" she asked. "Yeah, is the spot still available?" "Right where you wanted it." "Come on, I'll show you." She led me to a small garden area near the armorer's tent. It was peaceful there, with benches and flowers and a perfect view of the main path. We'd talked about putting a sculpture there to make it an official art installation for the fair. I unwrapped the piece carefully. It was the sculpture of the intertwined hands finally complete. I'd mounted it on a beautiful wooden base and added a small plaque. "It's perfect," the director said. "What's the title?" I pointed to the plaque. "The Armorer's Touch." She read it and smiled knowingly. Everyone at the fair knew about me and Elena by now. We'd become a bit of a love story among the volunteers. We installed the sculpture together, making sure it was secure and positioned just right. When we finished, I stepped back to look at it. The hands reached for each other, fingers intertwining, supporting and connecting. In the early morning light, the metal seemed to glow. "She's going to love it," the director said, patting my shoulder before heading off to handle other opening day tasks. I sat on one of the benches to wait. Elena was supposed to arrive soon. I'd asked her to meet me in the garden, telling her I had a surprise. About 20 minutes later, I heard her voice calling my name. She appeared at the garden entrance wearing her knight's armor, though she'd updated it with new leather work over the winter. She looked amazing. "There you are. What's this surprise you—" "Oh." She'd spotted the sculpture. She walked toward it slowly, her expression shifting from curiosity to recognition to something that looked like tears. "You made this," she said, not a question. "I finished it." Finally figured out how it was supposed to end. She read the plaque, her fingers tracing the words. "The Armorer's Touch, that's us. Yeah, from the very beginning. When I helped you with your armor that first day, I never imagined it would lead here." She turned to me, and there were definitely tears now. "You put our story in metal. I put our story everywhere. You're in everything I create now. You changed how I see the world." She threw her arms around me, almost knocking me off balance. "I love it. I love you."